Hi guys, so this is one more video about class-based views, and the last video was more of an overview, and today we will start with the lessons which are more detailed, and this lesson will be about built-in class-based generic views. So basically these are the views that you inherit when you create your views, and they basically help you to quickly write functionality for basic stuff. For example, if you create your web application, you might have some URL where you go to a particular page, and there you display the details about one particular object. For example, I don't know, if you have your blog website on there is a page which is associated with a particular article, with a particular post, and Django basically allows you to really create this page very quickly, and it provides you a lot of functionality already built in Django, so you can do your work faster. So there are some views that will list some objects, there are views which will display the details about an object, so things like that. And I guess I can show you how it looks like. For example, in the previous lesson we worked with this create student view, where we would work with the form and create student using the form. So let's imagine we created some users, and now we want to display them. We need to display the list of users. And if you use this function-based views, it will take a lot of time to write all the code for displaying student objects. And even if you work with this class-based view, it will still take a lot of time to actually write the code for accessing these objects and displaying them. And this is where generic views really help. So for example, let's just create student list view, and this is basically how you define this generic view. So you write list view, which you can import from Django views generic, import list view. And then what we do, we just specify the model. And you might ask me, what else? What else functionality do we need to define here? Maybe we should define some kind of function which will actually go through the objects of student and save them in some variables and then display them. No, there is nothing you should do regarding the view functionality now. That's basically it. This is everything that you need for basic listing of the student objects. And I think you already see that it's quite useful. You don't need to write a lot of code. You just basically wrote 2 lines of code. Just imagine how many lines of code it would take to create this stuff inside this function-based views. A lot of lines. But here, that's everything that we need. But of course, there are some other stuff that we need to do before it actually works. One thing that we need to do, we need to actually define it in URLs. So let's actually define it here, import it here, then define list students URL, student list view as view. Let's define also name, just in case we will need that. And then we would actually need to define the templates, the template for this, for displaying this information. If you didn't watch the templates video, I have it on my channel. So basically, here this view will look for a file in a particular location, and you can actually name student is not defined. Yeah, I need to import student from models, import student. And now if we open this page, list students, you can see that template does not exist, and we can actually see where we should place this template by default. So it's models, databases, administration, templates, administration, student list, HTML. And basically we can do that. You know, we can create, so basically, well, the first thing that this is a base folder for all of your templates. Again, if you want to know more about templates and settings of templates, please watch videos on my channel. But basically here we can create administration folder and administration student list HTML. So student list HTML, and here we can actually show the stuff. For example, for student in object list, and this is also, so as you can see, the location of the file is assigned automatically by Django, and also this context name also assigned automatically by Django. It's called object list, and here in object list we can actually iterate through it and get objects. For example, student name, we iterate through this object list that we received, and close the block here. Sorry, let me actually just take it and import it here, and and now, as you can see, we get the list of all the names of the students that we have in our database. So you can see there are a lot of stuff that is assigned automatically by Django. So we can also set up this stuff. For example, as you could see, the template is basically getting this administration student list template path, but we can specify other path. Let's delete this folder, and let's say that we have this folder here. So let's say study templates student list HTML. This is where we should get the template for this view, and as you can see, it's perfectly working still. And the other stuff that we can specify is, for example, this object. Let's close without saving and open this stuff. So as you can see, we have here this object list, and it might be not very helpful name if, for example, other people are working on the front end of your website and they might not really understand what are the objects here. So what you can specify is context object name, and you can say, for example, students, and then you can iterate through not object list but iterate through students, and it's working, as you can see. And also what I wanted to show you is that you cannot you can do a lot of stuff with these generic views. You can redefine some methods here. For example, we can redefine context data method, and so in this case, if you want to not have only students in our context, but we want to have some other stuff, like for example, you might want to have title, right? So in this case, we can redefine the get context data method. Get context data self. So we call the base implementation first to get a context. Context equals super get context data. And then we can actually specify title for this context. So we would add this title in the dictionary of the context. For example, my students. And then we would return our newly defined context with additional data here. And now if we open the page, we can maybe do that stuff. It will be easier. And as you can see now, our context has this title variable that we can use in the template. The other thing that you can set up is queryset. So for example, right now we define the model that we need to look for, and we can comment it out, and instead of defining model, we can define queryset. Basically for now it will not change anything. It's basically has absolutely the same functionality as in the previous case where we defined model, but when we might need it is, for example, if we don't want to show all the objects, but we want to show filtered objects, for example, where name of the student equals John. And that's what we can't really do if we just specify the model, but that's what we can do if we specify query set. We can specify more detailed query sets, more advanced query sets here. And we can also specify this query set using the method definition get query set. Return, for example, student objects filter name equals John. And there is something wrong here because I think I didn't add this stuff. Yeah, and as you can see, now it has the same functionality as this stuff. And again, you would ask me, well, Maxim, you already defined this query set here. Why would you make it more complicated? Why would you redefine the method in order to return this query set? Why would you write 2 lines of code instead of 1? And my answer is, well, you might need it in particular situations where you need to specify query set dynamically. For example, you might want to have this kind of URL path, list student's name, right? So right now it will just give us this stuff, but let's mention that when we specify the name, we need to show all the users with this name. So how can we do it in this query set? Well, can we specify something like name equals name? Well, no, where we would get this name? Maybe self name? Well, we don't have self here. Okay, we can do it. We can't do it this way, but we can do it here. And the only thing that we need to say is we need to get self quarks name. And now we can actually define queryset dynamically using stuff that we pass in our URL. Well, we don't have students with this name, but we should have students with the name John. And yes, we have 3 students with the name John. And these are different Johns. And we can check it out like this. Yeah, it's 3 different Johns here. So I hope now you understand why would you need to redefine this getQuerySet method. And I guess the last thing that I would like to show you is that you can also have not only ListView but DetailView. And for that, so it's kind of the same as here, right? We would pass something in our URL, but in this case, let's pass ID. Let's say I don't know, check student, and we would specify this primary key here in our URL, and we would specify it as student object view, check student. We would import student object view, the view that we haven't created yet, but let's now do that. Let's create this object view, class student object view object view, which we also actually it's not object view, it's DetailView, and now we can specify model student. We can specify template name also. Let's specify it as student HTML, and let's actually create this. And actually, let's specify also context object name as student. And now let's create this file, student HTML, which would return just information about student that we pass. And basically, I think check student. If we specify some name that does not exist, okay. Oh yeah, because we need to specify actually the ID. So let's specify ID that does not exist, and we can see that no student found matching the query, but I actually know that we have student with the ID 23. And when we check it out, we can see the information about the student. And I guess one more thing, the last thing that I wanted to show you is that when you get object in DetailView, you can actually do some stuff with this object. So let's get it, get object, and we can, for example, say name, let's change it to just open it object save, return object. I hope I did it correctly. Now if we open the page, we can see that when we opened this page, we changed the name of the object to just opened object. And you can also do other stuff here, any stuff that you want. Basically, that's all I wanted to show you for today, and I hope this lesson was useful. And please, as usual, I will ask you to support me by giving a like to my video, by posting a comment it will help me to reach more audience, and it's really important to me to reach more audience, to really see that my content is being liked, that people really find it useful. So please put a like, put a comment, subscribe, and thank you.